What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Unheard Truths Podcast, where this week's topic is a debate whether theater and or esports it would be considered sports, like actual sports. And we have two sides to this topic. One that is for and that agrees that both of them should be considered sports, and one that is opposed, saying that none of them should be sports. The side that is for calling them sports, would y'all introduce yourself?
I am Warren.
I'm Kaden.
And would the side that is opposed?
You already know what's going on. It's your boy, Nando.
Oh boy.
It's Brendan.
And I am your host for today's podcast. My name is Kieran, as you might know. So, does any side want to go first with their debate?
Sure, I'll go ahead and take the initiative in this here debate. I am personally pushing for the idea that esports should be considered along the same esteem as actual sports like football and soccer or football and tennis and such things. We already have examples of it being recognized as more of a sport with websites and companies such as ESPN not only having a page to give like game updates, but they also have like they actually broadcast games for events such as like going on right now, the Worlds, which is a League of Legends championship. Excuse me. ESPN is already currently hosting and broadcasting a few of the games being played. So we already have like one of the, if not the biggest sports websites broadcasting the games. So it's like, why even try and contest it now? But we still have a lot of people in the community who feel that it's not on the same level. So that's my opening point.
Caden?
Well, with theater, it's very similar to other sports. You have a team, you have practices all the time that go for quite a while, and just like there's a lot of things that are very similar. And it's also like theater isn't just sitting and reading. It's like getting up and doing things, and some dance and some do like all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of similarities between what theater is and then what other sports have or do.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, would either of you, like Warren per se, be an avid gamer, or Caden being like in theater and for watching it and participating in it?
Well, I have been on multiple semi-pro teams for games such as Rainbow Six Siege. I was on a team for about a few days whenever CSGO was more popular. So I have experience in the esports field, as well as I am in theater at our school. So that's my experience with the topics.
I was in theater last year, and I am in 3 plays this year. So.
Oh, and one more question about the esports. Is there like any money involved, like if you win or if you lose or anything like that? Does that help contribute to the fact that it is a sport, and sports do pay high amounts of money to their athletes?
Well, for one thing that there is pay. Players, depending on the organization you were signed with, you were paid to play for your team and stream, as a few people do. I know that a lot of teams get player houses, which is basically houses that companies rent out, and players are paid to stay there and practice and prepare for championships and stuff like that. And I know that prize pools for winning vary among like how popular the game is. It varies how much your team gets. But for this year, a championship that is going on right now, like I said, Worlds, the prize pool for this year's tournament is $18,742,645.
Wow.
And that is community funded in a sense. So they put out a bunch of skins, cosmetic skins in the game which is basically just like cosmetic items that you can put on your character. And they said if you buy these skins, all money from these skins goes towards the prize pool for the championship. So it's basically crowdfunded, as well as the company who made the game, Riot, put in $10 million of their own. So about $8 million was funded by the players to help pay for these pros to help pay for it.
Interesting. So you would still consider it a sport, like an actual physical sport? Okay. So, does the opposing side have any counter arguments or opening arguments?
What did you just say right now? You said use the words physical, and before you said as athletes get paid, do players get paid? Sorry. Right here, I'm looking at the definition. It says of definition of sport. It says any activity involving physical exertion and skill. Right now, I'm looking at the synonyms, and it says physical recreation, physical activity, physical exercises, athletic pastime. Tell me, what do you call someone that plays sport? We call them athletes. Can you tell me a gamer can be called an athlete?
It can be taken with a grain of salt. I will bounce back from side to side. It can be taken with a grain of salt. They can be considered, like, it really depends on the game. Like Guitar Hero, Dance Revolution, anything like that, like where you're actually physically moving, it could be considered a game. But I do understand where you're coming from. Like if somebody's sitting down at a computer, they're not physically moving, technically.
Actually, technically they are, because technicality falls upon what is technically going on, and your hands are moving, and your things and stuff like that are moving. So, I mean, I'm not going to base this whole entire argument off of technicality, but physical, yeah, there's not a lot of physical stuff, but there's a lot more mind stuff involved.
With the esports, it leans more toward the skill aspect rather than the physical aspect, because it's very mental, and it's very like you have to it's a lot more mental than physical.
So you're saying because of the mental skill involved, it makes it a sport?
I'm not saying just the mental skill, but on the thing is physical whatever and skill
and mental skill. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's take soccer for example. I personally play soccer, and you have to be really, really smart, and it's very skill based. It's a very mental game. So you guys are saying that video games are a mental game, and I don't doubt that. But sport is anything involving physical exertion and mental skills.
With theater, I understand that it's a physical activity and that you go through practices and all sorts of other things that are similar to sports. I understand that similarities can make things, close to each other. But I feel like it technically really isn't a sport due to the fact that theater in like most senses is not a competitive kind of thing. And I know some people will argue that yes, you compete against other people for their roles, or if you do like competitive improv, you compete against other teams. And I can understand those points very well. But for the most part of theater, you're not really competing. Yes, you're working as a team together, but there's not too much competition going on. And you say that you have to like remember stuff and that there's a lot of physical activity going on stage, like running from one side to the other, but I just personally really can't see that as the same as sports such as like basketball, football, baseball, lacrosse. I feel like those it takes
more physical,
it takes more physical and a totally different skill set to do each one. I feel like people in theater, they have a very specific skill set to remember lines and remember certain things, but in people who play physical sports, they're trained on a totally different mindset to be able to perform different tasks. As I was saying, like sports and theater, they take different skill sets, and with sport, you're competing against a different team pretty much the entire time, and the other team can do something that's completely unpredictable and that you never really know what's going to happen, so you have to improvise on the spot to adapt to what they're doing, and that's one of the main things I feel like is the different mindset.
Okay, so you started with competition. There are theater competitions with like throughout, like people perform like the same shows or different shows, and it's like a whole competition type thing. But the other thing with like the predictableness is like people always change their shows. They can be doing the same thing, the same show as another school or another company or whatever, but the sets are always different, the people are always different, and the way that they do things are always different. And if something were to happen while on stage or something were to go wrong, you have to figure it out and you have to go with it. None of them are ever the same. No one performance is ever the same, and it can be the same school. We had four performances of Beauty and the Beast last year, and none of them were the same at all.
I can understand that point. It's just like, it's mostly scripted. It's just, like as I said, it's like mostly scripted for the most point, so you have a very good guideline on where to go. And I understand, the same point could be taken back to sports, where it's like, yeah, football, you grab the ball, you run to the end zone, you have a goal. And I just feel like they're very different in their own ways.
Yeah, they're different, but it's just the fact that like I feel like theater should be considered a sport as well as regular sports, because it's a lot of the same stuff. It's a lot of the same physical skill, physical activity, mental skill, and then like the professional aspect of it, because you can go into professional sports, you can go into professional theater.
Back to what was going on earlier, all of us are in theater besides Fernando, so I guess we can talk a little bit about it.
Like explain it, or explain like what it's like.
Yes, please. I am so
and then
confused.
all of us are also in sports besides Caden at the moment.
I've been in sports.
Yeah, you have been actually. Yeah,
I have been, but you aren't currently.
I'm not currently because I won't
Okay.
get into that.
Okay.
Case rested.
So basically, for me, this is my first year of theater. Senior year, I was like, you know what, forget it. Why not try it? I haven't done it before. I might as well see what it's like. And I've honestly really enjoyed, doing rehearsals and stuff. I haven't actually been in a play yet, but it's difficult trying to remember everything and like stay in character for sure.
Well, it's like with theater, I don't want to say it's like similar to a sports team, or it's not similar to a sports team, but like the teamwork and the structure and like the friendships that you make are incredible. And I've made so many like great friends, whether they're my age or younger than me or older than me, through theater, and it's just a lot of fun. It's difficult, but in the end, it's just the experience, and it's,
I mean, you could say the same with sports too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but you were in Beauty and the Beast last year, right? What was that like?
Yes. That was fun, hectic, difficult, but again, it's the whole like the energy and the environment and everything. I love it.
Yeah, I can tell you it was hectic though, because I was working backstage for that, and there's like little children just running around backstage like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, where's my mic?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Being like a school theater production, there are younger kids and there are older kids, but I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Okay, so for my part of the play when I was doing backstage, one of my main things was make sure kids don't have heart attacks, and also there's these big panels for a backdrop that I had to move around. I was moving one, and I swear this kid got right in my way as it was going around the corner, and things started tilting, and I thought I was going to kill him. Not even joking. It would start falling straight towards him. I barely got it back in time.
Discipline is another big thing in theater,
This is my first year of theater. I am playing Gomez in the Addams Family, so this is the first year of theater I will be acting. Last year I came in last second to help record the shows, as well as I helped a little bit backstage. And I'll say that theater is an experience. I don't know, it's hard to find the words exactly, but even just from a backstage thing, there's teamwork required, because to put it into short, to transition scenes in Beauty and the Beast last year, we had to move some panels, like Brennan said, out in front to change it from a castle scene to a village scene. Those things were big, and they were heavy, and they were impossible to move if someone didn't do their job right. That required an abundant amount of of teamwork because they also only had so much time to get out there and into a specific order. It had to be from the left side of the stage to the right side of the stage, left, right, and stuff like that. And they had to do it fast, like in under 30 seconds. And if they didn't get it done in time, then it would have ruined the immersion of the play for that time, which is very important to the play being a play.
Well, the thing with there's another similarity with sports and theater is if something happens, you keep going. So if somebody gets hurt or something, you keep going, or they get off and someone else takes their place or something. But with auditions for this year, and an example for the quote unquote the show must go on. I was auditioning for our play this year, and I went in and answered the few questions that they have to ask, and then right before I was about to start my audition, my nose started bleeding. But I just grabbed a tissue and kept going and did my thing. They did have me come back to redo it since it threw myself and everyone off. But no matter what happens, you just keep going. You finish the show. And it's just it's the same thing with sports. You keep going. You don't just stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. I'm gonna bring it back a little bit to a little bit more of the esports side, because I feel like we've been talking about theater for a long time.
Yeah.
And I can understand everybody's we have a team going against a team, it's a lot of mental stuff going on, but I can feel just because you do something doesn't mean you're doing it in a athletic way or you're doing it as a sport. Because I can run on a treadmill all day long or every day for the rest of my life, but that doesn't make me I'm not an athlete. I'm just exercising. And so I feel a lot of video games, you're just playing. That doesn't mean you're really doing a sport. You're just doing it. You're just playing a video game.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I can agree that if you're just playing one game of Fortnite, once a day for 100 days, that doesn't make you an electronic athlete, as I think the term is. That doesn't make you an athlete. I think I can agree with that, is what I'm trying. The Daily Mail took a poll of around 300 professional esport players, and they compared those 300 to those of NFL players, and studies have shown that esport players, professional players, have the same reaction and cognitive processing speeds that rival NFL players themselves. So it's while it's not completely a physical sport, you're still training your mind and body to do stuff. So that is a big point. I'm not going to try and argue and say that if you spend 8-9 hours a day moving your fingers, that you're a competitive athlete and you can go out and you can run 10 miles. It's a different kind of sport, is the point I'm trying to say, is that it's more of a mental game, mental sport kind of thing. And this study kind of proves it, because the quarterbacks have to train their minds as well, and the running backs have to train their minds all to do certain things. And I think this kind of shows. And just one little point to show the popularity of esports. The esports have sold out arenas around the world, including the Staples Center and the Southeast Arena, which are both really huge arenas. That's just more just to kind of show just the popularity of it now.
By any chance, do you have an idea of how big they are? Because I don't know about those, to be honest.
I could obviously Google the
Well,
Staples.
the Staples Center's enormous. But
Yeah,
the thing with that is half of the venue, which the Staples Center, is taken up by the main stage where the gamers are. So it would not take that much to build it up.
The Staples Center capacity is 21,000.
So divide that in half, and then that would be a sold out show.
So that's still
around 11,000 people.
All right, and the opposing side, do you guys have anything else to add? Finish y'all's statement.
You said you guys like the gaming community, the esports thing, the competitions. They get a lot of people, right? So do singers, but you're not gonna call them vocal athletes. And I have a direct quote from a professional FIFA player. He's played in many events. I'm not sure if he's still pro right now, but he has a YouTube channel. You can look him up. His name is Bateson87. He once said, and I quote, "Yes, FIFA is mentally challenging, but it is not the same thing as professional soccer."
That's a valid point, considering someone who actually plays soccer and FIFA is just saying it's not worth it. But yeah, it's a good point.
So pretty much, as you're saying, like musicians and stuff, you don't call them vocal athletes. Like you never really see anybody like he's the lead guitarist and he's like, "Hey yo, check out my team. We're about to go and we're gonna compete." Yeah, you're competing with other people sometimes, like battle the bands or something, but they're never like, this is my sport. Like.
But that's music. That's a totally.
I think to consider
it's
esports,
a totally different thing.
like video games, sport, you would have to change the definition of it because, like you said, it is mental and it does take reflexes and stuff. But at the same time, sports is that and more. It has a physical aspect to it as well.
Well, okay. Well, you're saying, I mean, one point that I guess kind of counters your argument that it's not physical is that the esports athletes achieve up to 400 movements on a keyboard and mouse per minute.
Can you tell me how many calories that burns?
I don't know. Calorie burning doesn't.
Just because you burn calories doesn't make you an athlete.
Thank you, Kate.
Because you can burn calories at the gym, but that doesn't make everyone an athlete.
But like, okay, what I'm trying to say is that it does require muscle memory, muscle movement. It's not
with your fingers.
Okay, it doesn't matter. It's still a physical.
No, I was just saying. I wasn't making fun of it. I was just saying.
All right, guys. Before we get too off topic, I think we should make closing statements because we don't want to go on for too long. But I really appreciate y'all's passion for both sides of this.
Thank you, baby.
But if anybody else has anything to add, please make it pretty short as we are running out of time.
Overall, I just want to say that while I thoroughly believe that esports and theater should both be held to the esteem of sports such as football and baseball and so on and so forth, I am willing to accept the fact or opinion that maybe it should not be considered a legitimate sport, which means that my mind has been slightly changed. That maybe it should not be considered the exact same and be called a sport, but in the gaming industry still be called an e-sport, but not actually be considered along the lines of it. In theater's case, I myself believe that that while it is not, should be called a sport in of itself, it should definitely be, it shouldn't be classified as a sport, but I think it should be called a sport. Just to give it a word to give you an idea of the physical exertion and mental exertion and so on and so forth. So overall, my personal opinion is that while I don't see them as legitimate sports, I think they should be held to the esteem of one.
Okay.
Kaden?
No, it's about the same. I mean, I'm more just because people are like, oh, theater, it's just not doing anything. It's just sitting around. Because I've heard people say, oh, you're in theater, so you just sit around a table and read. No, it's hugely different than that, and it doesn't get much recognition or acknowledgement that I think that it should get.
So tell me if I'm wrong, but what you're trying to say is you don't think people take theater as serious.
Yes.
And you want it to be treated as serious. And one thing that people treat serious is sports, and calling it basically a sport would give people an idea that, hey, this is serious, like sports. So is that what you're trying to say? Okay.
Basically.
Oh, I see that.
So you don't believe it's technically a sport, but
no, I believe that it's a sport, but if it's not going to be, if it's not going to be something that everybody's like, oh yeah, it's a sport, if nobody's going to do anything to change it, then I mean, I still consider it a sport. Most people in theater consider it a sport, But if nobody's gonna take that authority or whatever higher up to make it a sport, at least like the acknowledgement and the understanding of like theater's not just dancing around. It's actually really difficult and really like complicated.
That's your point.
And there's so many sides to theater rather than just reading scripts.
How I feel about this whole thing is for esports, I can understand where the it can come in where it's like it's more of a mental sport, and I can understand that that's mental and that it is treated like a sport, but I don't really feel like it's a physical sport. Like, sure, you got to get finger dexterity and stuff like that, but I don't feel like that's enough to qualify as a physical sport. So I'll go and say it's a mental sport. I believe that's correct. It suits it. But theater, I still really don't feel like it should be a sport. I feel like it's somewhere more along the lines of entertainment, or I don't know how to say it. And I get that all sports are technically entertainment, but what I'm trying to get at is I feel like it does fall under entertainment with sports and stuff like that, but I don't feel like it is a sport in itself.
Yeah, I also agree with Warren's statement about how maybe it's not a sport, but I feel like it does need acknowledgement. And the same goes for theater. I don't feel like it should be considered a sport because it's of its technicalities and everything like that, but I do feel like it deserves acknowledgement.
Alright, well, I would like to thank both sides for giving their opinions and like their personal experiences on both whether whether theater and esports should be considered actual sports and whether they should not be. So, to wrap things up, I would like each member of this argument to say their names and we'll close out.
My name is Warren.
I'm Kaden.
I'm Brendan.
You already know, I'm Fernando.
And I am your host, Kieran. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and we hope that you will join us next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.